All right, hello everybody and welcome back to The Build. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Jay Jarvie's YouTube Builder Creator channel. So if you haven't heard of it, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Jay has a saying, he virtually starts off every video by saying, "Today is the day." Well, I'm going to use his saying because I think it's appropriate. Today is the day we install the Graziano Transaxle on the Superlite coupe chassis. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited about getting this into the car, so stay tuned. Okay, well in this segment we'll review what components come with the kit. Now when you order a kit from RCR and you choose to buy the Transaxle through them, they have an optional Transaxle completion kit. So I ordered the Transaxle and I also ordered the completion kit, which includes the clutch and the ring gear and the starter and fittings you see on the left side of the work table. It also included, when I bought the car, a billet shifter, which is really a thing of beauty, but we'll show that at a later date. But anyway, we'll go left to right and you'll see what comes in the kit. Then the following segment, I'll show you what other items you have to hunt down in order to complete the installation. So, I've got this document here and there are a number of fittings that come with the kit. And basically we've got some O-rings for to mount and seal up the clutch slave cylinder. This is a fitting for the clutch hydraulic line. Although this is really tall, I'll probably replace it with a banjo fitting. Then these are some fittings to connect an oil cooler to the Transaxle. If you don't mount an oil cooler, you still need to connect the outlet to the inlet of the back of the trans. This is a fitting for the clutch to bleed the clutch. Then you have the starter for the Graziano, also with the mounting bolts. Moving over here, we've got these rear mounting tabs that get mounted with the supply bolts to the back of the Transaxle. This is a Audi shifter cable bracket, and this is a axle heat shield bracket. And these all, come with the package. Here is the slave, clutch slave cylinder. Excuse me, I couldn't remember what it was called. This is a very expensive item. It's probably about $1,300 on its own, but you've got to install that. And then these are rear mount triangulation bars, and this holds the back of that trans rock steady or rock solid. And we may cover installing these in this video or a follow-on video. All right, so the next clip will be the additional parts you have to hunt down. All right, well, these are the additional parts you have to track down yourself. Let's just sort of go through them one at a time. These are CV joint heat shields. They attach to the Transaxle. Just get these off of eBay. They're like $20 each. They're pretty cheap. I always like to use these thin washers, mil-spec washers underneath the heads of the cap bolts. So these are for the 10 millimeter. These are for the 8 millimeter bolts. With regard to the starter, you have to get a plug or a boot and the necessary starter wire. So that's a kit from Volkswagen you get. Also, the splines on the clutch and on the Transaxle need a specific type of grease, so this is the Audi part number for that. These are alignment dowels. These are sort of hard to hunt down, but they are on the Audi website, and these align basically the Transaxle plate to the Transaxle itself, and you'll see how they fit in.
And then lastly, you have all these bolts. Now a stock Audi R8, the bolts come in from the engine side, but on the SLC, they, for the most part, they get installed from the Transaxle side. So you simply can't just go on the Audi website and order the bolts. So you've got to figure out what works for your combination of engine and Transaxle. So for the most part, these are 45 millimeter bolts. I like using the partially threaded bolts. They're strong around the shank. And there's one particular, let's see, a couple of things to note. There's some clearance issues with regard to the cap bolts in one of the areas. So I'm going to use a hex bolt so I can get a torque wrench on it. And then this bolt is going to feed from the engine side. And this is a 70 millimeter bolt. So they're all 45. This one's 40 because there's some sort of cap on the back of the LT4 engine and it needs a little clearance. And then this long bolt is 150 millimeters. And let's see, the last thing, I guess the last comment is, you have to size these bolts so you get at least 2x the width of thread engagement. So as long as you have 20 millimeters of thread engagement, you are good to go. All right, the next step is to prepare the clutch slave cylinder on the Transaxle.
Okay, well, we're looking at the bell housing area of the Transaxle. I wanted to point out where these O-rings go. I'll take my trusty pointer. So there's one on the top. There's an oval area on the bottom, and that's where those O-rings go. So we simply put some oil on them and then we insert them into place, and then the clutch slave cylinder goes on top of those. Okay, well, let's take another look at the O-rings. I forgot the clutch slave cylinder came attached to the Graziano Transaxle, and when you take them off, they had factory O-rings in them. But anyway, to reinstall, we're going to coat them with some oil and place them back to where they were. I got confused reading some other documentation from another builder, and it made it seem like you had to deinstall the clutch slave cylinder, but you really don't. But anyway, we'll coat the clutch slave cylinder with some oil, and we'll reinstall both the factory O-rings and also the clutch slave cylinder. So a little unnecessary work here, but at least I know it's in there correctly and I understand it.
All right, here we go. So anyway, you can see those two O-rings in place. Those are nice, they stay put. Also the clutch cylinder, there's an O-ring right on the tip here. So I put some oil on that, and also oil on that internal seal. And we'll just install it and tighten it up. Then we can move it to the back of the chassis and try to mate it to the engine.
All right. Let's see, we got got the mounting ears and the shifter cable positioned. Also have that slave cylinder installed. And you can see these torque screws. I'm installed those and torqued them up. A little hard to get to, but I wound up getting a long Torx bit from McMaster Car, and that did the job. The other thing is I put these alignment dowels, there's two of them, one down there. These, they don't quite press in, but it's almost like installing a bearing. It's got to sort of wiggle it in. And these dowels basically made up to that hole on the transaxle plate and that hole. They definitely just go right in on the transaxle plate, but on the transaxle itself, you've got to sort of wiggle and press them to get them in. So they definitely go in here versus being put in the transaxle plate and then installing the transaxle. Okay, so at this point, I think we're ready to go. We'll lift it up and we'll mate it to the engine, and we'll tighten up some screws, and then we'll take a look. Okay, we're close to the moment of truth here. You know, you sort of have to make sure this transmission is, straight perpendicular, and I think it's not, but we're sort of close to meeting this. I've got the tip of the drive shaft in the clutch, so we've got to sort of level it out and get a couple screws in there, so stay tuned. All right, so it's mission accomplished. The second time was the charm. Basically, I needed some help, so my son came over with a friend of his, and we used the sling approach with the engine lift, and we got the trans up to the clutch, and then we leveled it off with the floor jack underneath the tail of the Graziano. And basically, I got under the trans and just kept turning the drive shaft so that the splines were aligned with the clutch. And then basically the trans just slid right in. We had to, push it in a little bit to get the tip into the pilot bearing. But anyway, it's secured. It's not all torqued down yet, but it is looking good. I mean, this is a long time coming, so just get some glamour shots here, and then we'll call it a wrap. So anyway, next up on the channel, I'm going to start doing the electrical. I want to get the axles in, and then I have to fabricate the exhaust. So I'll probably do the axles first, start mocking up the exhaust, and then do the engine harness, which I have. I'll do a walk around on that, and then we'll start with the real electrical. Okay? Well, anyway, thanks for watching, and take care.